The Paris attacks in the last week have again raised questions over whether Britain is prepared for a similar terrorist strike here. The head of MI5 has warned we face a growing threat from extremists, both at home and abroad, and cannot hope to stop every single plot. With me now from a special edition of Crime UK is Jackie Haynes, who served with the Metropolitan Police for 30 years. And Jackie, you've met with Britain's top police officers, Sir Bernard Hogan, Howe, and discussed this very issue of how to fight terrorism.
Yes, I had an exclusive sit-down interview with him this week, and I asked him about the threat posed from jihadis returning to the UK and how he was dealing with it in the Met.
This is a difficult time. We're seeing great global challenges in Syria and Iraq that are having some impact on the city streets in London and different countries throughout Europe. We've seen attacks in France, in other parts in Belgium. We've seen other parts of Europe affected by this because, of course, many hundreds of people from, in fact, thousands of people across Europe have gone to Syria and Iraq to fight. And, of course, some people have been radicalised by that whole process. So we've got to react to that change. But I think we also need to maintain a sensible approach to it.
How successful have you been at stopping jihadis going abroad and indeed stopping them when they come back?
Yeah, we have over the last few weeks. We've actually, I think, 4 young girls we've taken. One case, I think we took off a plane on the runway. Others we've returned from Turkey, I think, in one case, and people we stopped at the ports here. So that, where parents tell us before they go, that's the time to intervene. And if we've got nothing else over today, it'd be a really good message to get to parents. You may be worried about talking to the police or the security service, but surely it's got to be better if you're worried about your child going to a horrible place where they might get killed or get involved in a crime or something, the horrible things we've seen on the media. If you tell us before they go, we've got a chance to do something about it. When they've gone, it's too late. There is no structure in these countries. There is no law. So the only law that matters is a gun. That's the sort of country they're going to. So they want their kids to go to that and then suffer the consequence of the violence that these people are meting out to their own people. Many of the people who are dying in these countries being murdered are Muslims. Many of the people who are being killed are also people who went out to fight and then are trying to get home. And then they change their mind, but the people they went to didn't change their mind. They are still the same zealots that we see day in, day out.
Is criminalising returning Muslims really counterproductive?
You've got to try and discourage people from getting involved in wars and getting involved in committing horrendous acts. We've seen these cases of beheadings. I mean, who wants anybody to get involved in that? No matter what their political motivation, no matter what their personal grievance, there's no justification for that sort of behaviour. So surely that we've got to make sure that we dissuade people from going there. And one of the ways is for the law to say it's a criminal act for you to get involved in those countries. Don't go. What clearer statement can a government or a state make? So that statement has to be made. And of course, if you make that the law, then when they return, you have to investigate it.
So these young people coming back, realising they've made a huge mistake, is it really right to criminalise them?
But why is that different to bank robbers? They knew that it was the wrong thing to do, and they changed their mind later when they got caught, and they wanted to turn the clock back. That's true of all criminals, generally. So I think I understand what you mean, of course. This might be a political or a religious motivation. The bottom line is they're destroying theirs and other people's lives. And the best thing people like me, law enforcement, can say is don't do it. And if you do it, you're putting yourself at risk, personally. You do it, you're putting yourself at risk in criminal law. If you carry on and take that risk, it isn't my problem anymore. What more can we do other than advise people don't get involved?
So it's that risk that is the deterrent.
Yeah. And I think the other thing we'd like to get over to the public is that if they can tell us not only is it someone they know and they are worried about changes in behaviour, because people do change their behaviour when they get involved in this type of crime. If they're becoming more radicalised, their behaviour will change. And on that journey, we need to know. So if people tell us, we will investigate it. And I remember back to the 7/7 attacks, which is now a few years ago, but many people died in those attacks. You remember probably that the investigations that were carried out when they went back to the houses where they'd mixed the bombs, that there were changes. So that there were some men of Asian appearance, and some of their hair had become bleached. If you looked at the vegetation outside the flat in which they were mixing the cocktail of explosive, some of the bleaching agent had got through the window and had bleached the vegetation. And people had noticed that, but nobody put two and two together. I had somebody thought, it's really odd. And by the way, there's a funny smell coming out of that flat. What's all that about? That's the sort of thing we need to know about. But they do know something's changed. People always spot unusual behaviour, and the best of police work is when someone tells us, we listen, and that's vital that we listen properly, and then we do something about it.
It's Bernard Hogan, Howe there, speaking to Jackie. And Jackie, quite interesting that he was saying that the public also have to play their role, that they should note if they see any changes in behaviour of people that they know.
Yes, I mean, the police can't be everywhere, nor would we want them everywhere. So it really is so important that the public feel able to pass on any information that they feel is relevant, particularly in communities where this radicalisation is going on really in plain sight quite often. So I think it's it's so important that the Muslim communities in particular feel able and feel trust enough in the police to come forward, give that information, and they will be supported through that if they do so.
Now, you've served with the force, well, you served with the force for over 30 years. These events in France, how has that impacted on you?
Well, I think any serving police officer, any ex-police officer is always brought into that police family and senses that feeling of camaraderie. It's part of being involved in a vocation like that. I lost 3 friends to IRA bombing in the 80s, and the first place I wanted to be is at work. And I think that's what we're seeing in France. We're seeing that sense of community, a sense of camaraderie, not just in the police service, but throughout the community, throughout the city. People want to be there to show their support and to actually say that those officers didn't die in vain. They didn't die, they died protecting the public, and there are plenty more to stand in their place, continue to protect the public. And that's what makes the job very different from any other.
Well, welcome back to a special edition of Crime UK, where we're looking at whether Britain is prepared for a terrorist attack on a scale that we've seen in Paris. With me is former Met Detective Jackie Haynes. And Jackie, you've been looking at what the authorities here might be doing in the wake of the strikes in France.
Yeah, and it's all about the current threat level, which in the UK at the moment is severe. This means a terror attack is considered to be highly likely, according to MI5. In response, the UK government increased the security at our borders and airports, including the Eurostar terminal at St Pancras in London. Speaking earlier this week, Prime Minister David Cameron condemned the attacks in Paris.
We stand absolutely united with the French people against terrorism and against this threat to our values, free speech, the rule of law, democracy. And it's absolutely essential that we defend those values today and every day.
Well, let's just bring you some latest pictures that we're getting in from Paris of Theresa May arriving there for that million-person march in solidarity with those that have been killed in those atrocious events in Paris. There she is, the Home Secretary. She will be meeting with other interior ministers today, and as we know, David Cameron also will be in Paris. He earlier tweeted that he would be in the city and showing his solidarity with the people of France. But there you go, the latest pictures there of the Home Secretary, Theresa May, arriving in Paris.